All right, the last big GVG Switch 2 impressions. And I say last big because, well, there's a lot. We're talking third parties on Nintendo Switch 2. I think that was honestly one of the most surprising things about the Switch 2 Direct was just how much third party support was there. And we got to play a bunch of those games.
Yeah, as somebody who covered both the Switch 1 and now the Switch 2 launch events or premiere events, I was shocked by how many third-party games were actually playable at the event. Because there was more of them than I could have imagined. We had Hades 2, we had Yakuza 0, we had Cyberpunk 2077, Street Fighter 6. Lots and lots of third parties were at the event in force. It definitely felt different to 2017 when I first went hands-on with the Switch 1. But the first game I dropped in on was Hades 2. And I gotta say, even though I'm kind of famously on the record as not having been a Hades enjoyer, I did come around on it over time. And Hades 2 it feels so good on Switch 2. It runs perfectly smoothly, extremely crisp visuals. We played it in docked mode. Supergiant wasn't able to let me know what specific frame rate or resolution it was running at, but it felt very much like a locked 60 FPS. I got pretty far in my run during the demo. I ended up running out the clock instead of dying, and I just didn't see a single issue with this game. I know that it's out in early access now, but I will wait to play it on Switch whenever they drop it.
This is definitely the kind of game that, I love to play in handheld, like on Switch. I played the original Hades on Switch 1, and I can tell you that it certainly doesn't look as nice as Hades 2 does on Switch 2. This is a great game to get so soon with Switch 2. I was so surprised when I walked up to you playing it because I was off recording something else, and then I came up to you and you were playing it, and I was like, wow, that looks really good.
Yeah. This is one of those games that, there's a lot of hyperbole around the Switch 2 and around performance in general, but this is a game that, without any measure of hyperbole or exaggeration, looks every bit as good on Switch 2 as it does on PS5 or Xbox Series X. There will not be a platform that looks better than this because it's not a demanding game per se.
Right.
And so this is one where the simplicity of the art style really works in its favor here. This is a game like Hollow Knight or any of these others where the art direction lends itself to looking fantastic on lower end hardware. And of course, the Switch 2 is not low end hardware, but it is certainly less technologically capable than, a console 10 times its size. But in the case of this, there's literally no better place to play it.
No, and I certainly felt that way too. But another third-party game that really surprised me was Street Fighter 6.
I was shocked to see this. Now again, if you know my record, you know that I am a huge Street Fighter head. I have played Street Fighter 6 an absurd amount since it released. 2 years ago? But it is probably my favorite of the modern crop of fighting games, and it is so faithfully recreated on Switch 2. Now, to be fair, they did introduce weird Capcom stuff into it. There's a calorie mode in which I guess you just shake the Joy-Con until you burn X number of calories, and that's how you win. And there's a gyro mode where, again, you just shake the Joy-Con to fight.
It just does stuff.
Yeah, and it does actually technically good stuff. It will just kind of determine what the best strat is for where you're placed.
The staffer there told me that the strength of your shake dictates whether you do a light, medium, or heavy attack.
Oh, that's interesting because I ended up accidentally in that mode doing a jump into a fierce, into a low kick, into a Hadouken. I was stringing together combos with it that I was like, oh, these are good combos. Still not the way that I would prefer to play. Fortunately, they had a traditional Pro controller setup, and you and I got to play on that. It went the way you guys think it would. But
That first round was all right.
you did okay in the first round. But what I was really struck by, and to be clear, in contrast to Hades, this was a game where the Switch 2 downgrade was evident, but not nearly as evident as you might think. I think a lot of people will think that Ryu will look potato quality in this.
But he doesn't. It's just like there's like a difference like in the skin texture quality, the detail level that you see on them. You definitely notice that when you do the pre-fight like screen where their faces are in the camera and you can do the weird, reactions. That looks a little rough on Switch 2. But when you're in an actual match, I kind of just forgot we were playing on Switch 2.
Yeah, one of the things that I was really looking for, and the reason that I played Ryu specifically, was RE Engine, and the implementation of it in Street Fighter 6 has this amazing muscle deformation tech, and that's there. I intentionally hit you with Ryu's Ultra, right? Like the Met's Shoryuken, and when Ryu draws back and he really pumps his arm up to deliver that final blow, you see his bicep like enlarge on the Switch version the same way it does on PS5. And in those moments, I'm not thinking about how many polygons are on screen or whether his arm is bump mapped or not. I'm just hyped for the fact that I landed this killer hit. And honestly, when I was walking by the screens and I wasn't really scrutinizing it, just looked like Street Fighter 6. Like I was like, wow, this is impressive. And if I was playing this in handheld mode, oh, forget about it. It'd look amazing.
Yeah, this is one of the most impressive third-party games that we saw. But I think there's arguably two that might be more impressive. I want to start with Yakuza, because Yakuza, was one of the games we got to like near the end of the show. And you said something to me as we started recording that kind of blew my mind. It was playing at 4K 60 FPS.
Yeah. So one of my go-to questions to everybody that I got a demo from was, what's the resolution of this game? Like, what is it playing at? And admittedly, very few were able or willing to answer.
Yeah.
I was very shocked when Nintendo gave me resolution stats for some of their games. But Sega was very confidently like, yeah, Yakuza 0 is 4K 60 FPS on Switch. And I mean, it looked it. It really did. It's an older game. It's a PS4 game, running on Switch 2, so it makes sense. It's not like it's Yakuza 0 remastered. It's just Yakuza 0. But just any game running at a locked 4K 60 is mind-blowing to me, right? This is a launch title for the Switch 2, and I was running around Kamurocho fighting people poorly because I didn't remember how. I hit a guy with a trash can. I went to an arcade and played Space Harrier because that's what you do. But it didn't skip a beat whatsoever. And there were parts of it where I was like, wow, that, I'm walking by and I see like a really good looking reflection in water on the street, or, there's NPCs everywhere, right? You're running through a city. It's just a deeply impressive.
The thing that like stood out to me the most was that game just pops on Switch 2. Like obviously like the colors are, it's bright and colorful because of just the setting. But I don't know if it was just the HDR or just because the visuals were so sharp, but it popped off the screen for me.
Yeah, it is. It's such a colorful game. It's the action in it is larger than life, which is just a hallmark of the Yakuza series. But it really did feel, in its own weird way, just like how is this happening right now? Mm-hmm. I've got this game just. PS4 couldn't do this, and I still look at a PS4 and I'm like, that's a perfectly capable piece of hardware. PS4 couldn't run it at 4K 60, or at least it didn't. You're in the realm where you're drawing comparisons to the PS4 Pro, and that to me is just mind-boggling. Like, I can't wrap my head around that at all. The fact that Sega has this running at 4K 60 makes me feel like, We're going to get a whole lot more Yakuza. We're going to get Judgment. Just bring it on. I can't wait to see these, but this is going to be a day one pickup for me for sure.
Yeah, that was a stupidly impressive game. Split Fiction was another one that we played, and we talked about this a little bit in our broader Switch 2 hardware video, but that game just ran. It just worked, and I really didn't expect it to. In the Switch 2 Direct, I remembered thinking that the gameplay footage for this game in particular didn't look great. But then we played it, and it was just fine.
Yeah. Split Fiction, I have fortunately played on PS5 and Xbox Series X. And so I have a pretty good base of comparison there. And I didn't really notice, like, I mean, yes, visually it looks better on those consoles. That's not a surprise to me. But what I did see here was a game that, you know, has a lot going on in it and still manages to do so on Switch 2 with no major downgrades apparent. Like, yeah, texture quality might be lower, you know, but it's not like what you would expect when we have these conversations around Switch 1, right? Like if you look at Mortal Kombat 1 on Switch 1, it looks like a Game Boy version of the MK1 on other platforms. This is, I mean, there's a visual downgrade you can notice, but it's not so much that you would really, that it would be the deciding factor in where you play it. And, you know, everything that we played was a level I had played at home, and it played exactly the way, frame rate and all, that it plays on competing platforms. And the fact that you're doing that split screen on a single Switch 2 is just cool as hell. I love it so much. And the fact that the developer also confirmed that, like the other versions, it will support the Friend Pass. So, you know, when we have our Switch 2s, I could just send you an invite to play it with me if I have it, and you wouldn't have to buy it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that about all their games, and it's great to see that's available here on Switch 2 as well. But I think the most impressive game overall, the most like this, how is this even happening kind of game, had to have been Cyberpunk.
Yeah, Cyberpunk was my pie in the sky, probably not going to happen, but going to take the moonshot prediction anyway, Switch 2 game. And when it showed at the Direct, if we had not been in a room full of other more respectable people than us, I would have just jumped out of my chair. I was ready to shout to the heavens about that one showing up. So I had to go see it. And I got to talk to someone from CDPR who let me know that the build we played, impressive as it was representative of only 7 weeks of work.
That's crazy.
That they had been developing that port for only 7 weeks. Now, that's, to be clear, that's not to say that they've only been working on Cyberpunk for 7 weeks, but the build we played was at week 7 in the development timeline. And it didn't even have all the stuff that they said it was going to have when it launched. CDPR told me that Cyberpunk 2077 on Switch will have a performance mode targeting 40 FPS, which puts it within that VRR window to make it look really nice and smooth. And that it will have a quality mode targeting 25 to 30 FPS, which, you know, I don't know where that's going to land. I don't know what the build we played looked at, but it looked impressive. It had a lot of Switch Impossible port vibes.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly some slowdown moments, especially when you got into combat. But knowing what we know about that build, it's kind of hard to care. Just the fact that it was working. I'm very excited to see what the final build of this version of Cyberpunk looks like, because, like you said, this is an impossible port. But we're starting to get to the point where impossible port and compromise, you know, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, this is proof that we're at a point with the Switch hardware, and when I say Switch hardware, I very much mean Switch 2, where those boundaries of what should be possible are seemingly ceasing to exist, right? Cyberpunk, for me, was, you know, when I predicted it, I said that this was a game that Nintendo needed to show people just how capable the hardware is. To show people that it can even get on there is an achievement. And to see that CDPR is handling this one personally, by the way. Witcher 3 was ported by Saber Interactive. So this is CDPR doing Cyberpunk on the Switch 2 in-house. And this is the first time they've ever launched a game alongside a platform. So this is a big thing for them. But just seeing that this is possible really kind of, for me, takes the guardrails off of, it communicates to me that if I see a game, I'm like, yeah, that could be on Switch 2. I can't think of a game now that I would be like, oh, Switch 2 couldn't handle that. That's too much. I think there will be people who will say that about whatever in the coming years, and then that game will probably show up on Switch 2.
I mean, we've already seen it in the Direct. Like, they showed us Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Like, for a lot of people, the third-party game, Elden Ring. And now we got FromSoft making an exclusive.
Yeah. I was shocked when we saw a FromSoft exclusive. I couldn't believe it.
This is a Nintendo, like, telling us they're excited about third parties, but it's true. Like, the reality is that the third party support is there and it's strong.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see a lot of games from the third party sizzle reel from the Direct. Like Star Wars Outlaws wasn't there, Ubisoft wasn't there at all, which was a bit surprising. Ubisoft is usually day and date with something.
Yeah.
But I imagine that they're busy. I have to say though, we saw a lot of third parties, a lot of very impressive efforts. It's more support than I would have expected, even knowing that Switch was a runaway success for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm. I think this is telling a very positive tale, and that a lot of third party games that might get announced here in the future, they're probably just going to be on Switch 2 from the get-go.
Yeah, I think Nintendo has lowered that barrier of entry in a significant and meaningful way. It's very interesting to also see Amiibo extending to just full-on third-party stuff. We have had like a Monster Hunter Amiibo here and there. We've had a few things.
Mega Man at one point.
Yeah, we had a Mega Man Amiibo, but it's been exceedingly rare. Now we have like a series of Street Fighter 6 Amiibos coming alongside the game.
To a version that didn't launch, at the same time as the platform. Like, this is a game that's been out for 2 years already.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what Nintendo is doing to court developers. Obviously, Capcom is one of their most like treasured partners. Let's say, they informed the development of the Switch 1. So
we got that Dark Souls amiibo when Dark Souls Remastered came out.
That's right.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get like a tarnished amiibo.
That would be amazing. A tarnished amiibo for Elden Ring. But yeah, I it's weird because I had a lot of fun with third-party games on the Switch 2, but I was definitely more focused on first-party offerings.
Yeah,
at the event,
of course, I was too. But the fact that like the third-party games left an impression on me, I think, is impressive. When I see third-party games in a Nintendo thing, my first thought is usually, yeah, I'm gonna go play that somewhere else.
Yeah, I think the Switch 1, the tail end of the Switch 1 era, trained us to basically look at them and view them as games to be played on a competing platform, because the experience was so much better on those other platforms. But here, we're not only seeing that these third-party games are remarkably close to what they are on PlayStation or Xbox, but also one of the things that I found as an interesting through line with these games was that Nintendo doesn't seem to care about these developers wanting to have crossplay or cross progression. Capcom was very clear with me that crossplay is absolutely a thing for Street Fighter 6. You'll be able to play with your PlayStation and Steam homies on Street Fighter 6, Xbox friends as well. And Cyberpunk will also support cloud saves that can be transferred between all platforms that the game's on. So you can pick up your PC save and start playing it on your Switch 2 and then move it back over to your PC. And I'm like, that is the best use case for this game that I can imagine. Like, because I will be the first to admit, if I'm playing Cyberpunk at home, I'll probably want to play it on, you know, my very capable PC to get the best looking experience. But I also might just want to take it upstairs and lounge on the sofa and you know, play it handheld mode. And I can't imagine a cooler way to play that game than by being able to have it both ways.
Yeah, for sure. You know, that was the big pitch with Switch 1, and it's cool to be excited about that idea again with you know, playing like these larger than life games just on a screen that's so small with controllers that are so thin and so small. I didn't think Nintendo would be able to recapture that with Switch 2, but they have, and I'm honestly stunned that they did.
Right? And think about how far we've come. In October 2016, I remember being wowed that Skyrim was on the Switch.
The game that's notoriously on everything.
Yeah, seeing that game, I was like, wow, Nintendo means business with third parties, you know? This is a big deal. And now, you know, we're seeing freaking Cyberpunk on, like, a game that is just so much technologically further ahead of Skyrim, that it's almost unbelievable that the second device in a generation, you know, at launch would be playing something that came out in 2020 versus Skyrim, which came out, oh gosh, what,
2012?
Yeah. So it just amazing to me what they've managed to do, and I'm really happy to see that Nintendo is really taking third-party support seriously.
Yeah, I am too. I think the future is going to be really exciting in that department. But I think we have exhausted the gauntlet of Switch 2 games that we got to play. What a whirlwind day.
Yeah, it's been a long day. A long day, but a great day.
Yeah, absolutely.
We played so many games on a platform that's not yet released. I didn't think that we would have more than a dozen playable games at an event for a console that's not out yet. It just goes to show how far along this thing is. That June 5th date makes a lot of sense in this context.
Yeah, and it's going to come quick, like just over 2 months from now.
I can't wait. If they told me it was 2 days from now, I'd be taking time off so I could play.
But that's going to do it for us for now. Let us know in the comments below. Is there a third-party game that wasn't shown here that you want to see on Switch 2? And is there a third-party game that was shown that you want to play? Let us know what you think about that below. And thank you so much for sticking with us through all of this. This has been super fun to do. There's so much Switch 2 to talk about. My hype levels have left my body, and I don't know, they're somewhere way up there in the sky right now. I got to bring that back down at some point. But yeah, we're officially on the train, and the train is speeding towards release date.
Yeah, pre-orders are in just a few days if you're not buying from Nintendo anyway. And I can't wait. I will be at whatever place will take my money with said money as soon as they're willing to take it.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out with us so much. If you like what we're doing here, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Banana slamma that subscribe button one more time for us. Like the video, and I guess we'll see you with more Switch 2 stuff. I'm sure that the information train has plenty more to go.
Yeah, there's a Mario Kart Direct at some point.
It's 2 weeks from now. Thanks so much. Keep the games good and the vibes greater. Bye now.
Bye.